If we're being honest, though, this is sort of the channel where I am no longer not necessarily not being polite, but where we are getting real about all of these spiritual concepts and what they actually mean and how it actually applies to your very real everyday life. What is up? Welcome to Spiritual Real Talk. I'm Megan. Thank you for tuning in today. I have to tell you, full disclosure, because I keep laughing in my head and I think it's necessary that you're in on the joke. I think it's time we got an inside joke, right? We've been doing this for a few episodes now. So every time I think to myself, welcome to, Spiritual Real Talk, or I use that phrase, I instantly, in my elder millennial being, am transported back to when MTV aired the show The Real World. If that is not in your landscape of childhood, go do your research. Stop watching this video. Who cares about enlightenment? Go check out The Real World. But the tagline in Real World was, when people stop getting polite and start getting real. So that's what's coming into my head now. I don't know what brought it in there, but it's implanted itself. It's a part of the zeitgeist now. And every time I say into the camera, welcome to Spiritual Real Talk, all I want to say is, where people stop getting polite and start getting real. So that's where we're at. If we're being honest, though, this is sort of the channel where I am no longer not necessarily not being polite, but where we are getting real about all of these spiritual concepts and what they actually mean and how it actually applies to your very real everyday life. So with that being said, we are diving in today to the idea of self-love. Self-love, self-esteem, self-worth. I'm kind of wrapping them all in a bow and consolidating them for the purposes of this conversation. And the thing that always comes to me is a line that I heard Deepak Chopra say when I first started working with him, learning from him, almost 15 years ago at this point. And I really loved it. There are lots of ways to kind of define self-worth and self-love, but this take has always given me a moment to pause and reflect, even to this day, on how I feel about myself and how much my opinion of me is dictated by others' opinion of me. And so the line that I heard him say is, he uses self-esteem. True self-esteem is being immune to the good and bad opinions of others. And I like this for a few reasons. Number one, if the love that we are shown is defining the love we show ourselves, you are going to be in a perpetual state of anxiety, insecurity, searching desperately for that external source so that you feel good about who you are, so that you feel lovable, so you feel like you have worth. And it's not uncommon, given that so much of our lives revolve around these roles that we play. It's how we introduce ourselves. It's often how we see ourselves and how we dictate our worthiness. If I asked you to introduce yourself to me, or if I introduced myself to you at one point in time, I would start rattling off my characters, right? The areas in life in which I infuse who I am. So my name is Megan. A name, what's in a name? What does that even mean though, right? Why is that important? Why is the name important? I wear it on a necklace. Why is it important? Right? Shout out to jewelry circa 8th grade, North Jersey. My name is Megan. I teach meditation. I used to work in the music industry. I was born in New York. I was raised in North Jersey. I live in Los Angeles. I don't eat gluten, right? All of these qualifying roles that I could easily look at. I'm a daughter. I'm someone's partner. I'm a dog mom. I'm a friend. I'm an author, right? You can look at all these roles and say, oh, I feel good about myself when. I feel good about myself if. All those things are going well. And if whatever's on the other side of that relationship looks successful and is being affirmed. It's not unlike the metaphor alert, plugging your phone into an outlet to charge, right? If you are getting your charge primarily from external outlets, you're always going to be thirsty for that charge. Let's say you don't have a charger at home. You don't have one of those chargers that you carry around with you attached to your phone. You're always needing to plug in somewhere else. We've all had that moment. I see you. We've all had that moment. It doesn't feel good. It feels uneasy when you don't know where that charge is going to come from, and you get really attached to those external outlets, how they're going, where they are, what do they think? And all of a sudden, there becomes this very tethered relationship from your sense of self, your sense of self-worth, your sense of how much do I love myself to that external outlet. And one of the beautiful things about meditation is that the more and more that you practice resting within yourself, the more you carry that awareness with you. And there just begins to become this space of really healthy detachment. It's not that you don't care entirely, but there's this healthy detachment between you and all these roles that you're playing. And you know that the inherent impermanence or uncertainty that exists in a relationship, in a job, in a bank account, right? In all of these areas where you could say, oh, I love myself when, I feel good about myself when, all of a sudden it's okay if those things are innately uncertain or impermanent. There is an essence of who you are that is not able to be divorced, broken up with, bankrupt, late, right? There's a part of you that is being expressed in all of these roles beautifully. You know, one of my favorite roles is being a meditation teacher. And I love sharing the essence of who I am, this deep desire to be in a community that cares about expanding consciousness and sharing the tools that I have, being in this dialogue. It's one of my favorite roles to play. And if someone says, I don't think you're a good meditation teacher, that's okay, because this role is not what defines how I feel about myself, right? And so that's where we get into that quote, true self-esteem, being immune to the good and bad opinions of others. And I think it can be easy to get to that point of, you know, what's that phrase? Like haters gonna hate, right? I think it can be easy to get to that point with the negative. Somebody, in fact, shout out to, I forget the username, but somebody commented on my YouTube channel. What did they say? They said, I forget what video it was, but they said, no one cares. And I couldn't help but laugh, literally. You know, and it wasn't like, screw you, and I don't know what you're talking about, I'm doing so great, right? It was literally, I laughed and I thought to myself, oh, I guess maybe I've made it because I have a troll. You know, this is great. I've made it. Look, mom, I've made it. I have a troll. And equally, so many of you have left beautiful messages on the other side of the spectrum. Thank you for sharing all this wisdom. I'm so glad you finally started this. I love hearing your metaphors, right? Those obviously are more enjoyable to experience than whoever it was that wrote, no one cares. And yet, those positive comments, while they felt good and while I received them, also didn't really move the needle on how much I love myself. And that's where we get into this being immune to the good and bad opinions. It's not that you don't receive it. It's not that you can't care about someone's opinion and take constructive criticism. It's not that if someone, shares something beautiful with you as a reflection, it's not that you can't receive that and that can't feel good. But those are just the kind of add-ons to how you already feel about yourself. When you are the one filling up your cup, the rest is just gravy. So when you get something that feels great, amazing, but that's the overflow. When you get something that is maybe not so great, that's okay because it's the overflow. And so the practice that I would invite you to start doing is to practice affirming yourself. The more you affirm yourself, the more that becomes what defines how you feel about yourself. And then all of a sudden, other people's love for you is just the thing that reinforces how you already feel about yourself. It's going from desperately thirsty, looking for that external charge, to having one of those, chargers that's attached to your phone. You are a constant source of that charge within yourself. Probably not great EMF wise, so maybe that's not the best move, but in terms of the metaphor, right? You become the strongest source of charge in your life. And there's something really beautiful about that. And so I would say, as a tool, meditation, obviously 100%, that's generally one of the top tools that I will recommend for anything. But meditation, and then this other thing that I've been doing lately that I've been really vibing with is, while I'm brushing my teeth, I will look in the mirror and silently, obviously because I'm brushing my teeth, silently say the new thought, right? Whatever it is that you're kind of struggling with, wherever you're looking for that external validation, say it in an affirming way to yourself. And the caveat to this is, brush your teeth with your non-dominant hand. So I'm a righty, flip the script, holding the toothbrush with my left hand. And as you're brushing, look yourself in the eye and think that new thought. And I don't know the depths of the science behind this, but high level, when we are creating new neural pathways, longer video on this, when we're creating new neural pathways, which is essentially the kind of autopilot response that your brain has to the world, creating a new neural pathway becomes easier and more effective and faster when you are having to use your brain. So when you're brushing your teeth with your dominant hand, mindless, right? Because you've been doing that forever. But when you switch hands, really when you're doing anything with your non-dominant hand, it's wildly humbling. Have you ever tried to stir a pot or flip an omelet, or certainly writing, but anything that you normally do with your dominant hand, put it in the non-dominant hand and practice thinking the new thought. I really like the toothbrush one because then you can look at yourself and get a little of that really nourishing, really sometimes very vulnerable, and sometimes it feels kind of cringy. Totally get it. But you can get that reflection work and stare at yourself and tell yourself the things that you desperately wish that you were hearing from the world. And notice how that shifts and how it creates a different relationship when you do hear things from the outside world. I promise you, if you start doing this work, when someone gives you the biggest compliment, of course it feels good. And also you're not holding on to it desperately, right? You keep it moving. And when someone says, no one cares, I promise you, it's easier to, receive it, hear it. Maybe it's not great. Maybe it doesn't feel as good as that compliment, but you also let that go. So I really invite you to kind of practice and play with that in your life and really do that work to be that most cherished, most consistent, unwavering source within yourself of how much you love yourself, of how worthy you are, of how enough you are, right? And just notice how that changes how you feel when others agree or don't. Thanks for being here. Thanks for hanging out. If you have comments, any comments, good or bad, drop them in. Let me know. If you haven't already subscribed to this channel and you are into it, please subscribe just so that you know when we drop these videos. I am going to be dropping some meditations as well. So hopefully those are a really good kind of way to implement a lot of these things that I'm talking about. And make sure you like it. If you share it, if it resonates, share it with somebody that could use this message. The greatest thing you could do if you are vibing with this is to share it with more people. That is the biggest intention for me in doing these videos, is just to reach as many people as possible with the things that I have been so blessed to learn over the last 15 years of doing this work. So thank you for being here and sending you so much love. Until next time.